going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel. What is going on, everyone? I got some big plans here, so we're going to get right at it. First, I'm going to park the car in the garage. Before I do that, though, I'm going to show you guys how nice this color really looks in the sun. It's really a gorgeous color. I just can't get over the color. I like it way more than I did when I bought it, and I liked it then, which is why I chose it, but it's growing on me even more, which is really hard to do considering I just downright loved it. But I would say that this is probably the nicest color I've ever seen on a Mustang, in my opinion. It's really between this or Twister Orange, but I like this way better. I really do. I think it is just downright flawless, and it's just, like I said, it's just a beautiful color. It really is. I love it, and we're really gonna get into the plans, the talking plans for the car, and let you guys know exactly what's going on. It seems like the quality is a little low, so I'm gonna have to check that out, figure out what's going on here, get back on Wi-Fi. Hopefully that'll clear things up. But I don't see like the quality's getting any better. It's quite bad. What does it look like for you guys? It looks like the quality might be a little off. It's got like aliasing around the edges of the screen, so I'm thinking that it might be bad. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch out. Go switch my Wi-Fi. I'm back. That should be a lot better. I switched to a better Wi-Fi. I have a couple of Wi-Fis. All right. We got to pull it in the garage. Listen to that flat plane crank, guys. But the great part about this is, listen how quiet it is in the cabin. It's like really quiet. Like, it's just unbelievable how much of a good job they truly did building this car. But I will tell you guys, there is some sort of noise cancellation going on the inside of the car. And there's a speaker up here, and I unplugged that, and all the noise I was hearing is gone. Like at idle right now with the exhaust flaps closed, I would hear this weird popping sound, and it almost felt like the exhaust was popping, like the engine idle was bad. But it wasn't the idle of the car that was bad. It was actually the base of the exhaust with the valves closed. And with that base, the microphone was picking it up and making the subwoofer pop to kind of eliminate the sound of the exhaust, which only made things drastically worse. So I unplugged it. Much better with it unplugged, I will tell you guys for sure. But I'm going to be doing a full review on this car now that it's getting warmer, but I said this in other videos, and I love how instead of leaning over and having to touch SRT pages, and you know, you're driving with one hand or you're shifting with one hand, even though the Hellcats are auto, you can manually shift them or paddle shift them. You constantly have to reach over and touch stuff on the screen, and sometimes when you're going over bumps and you're trying to switch stuff, touching a screen can be very aggravating. Whereas with the GT350, if I want to switch to track mode, it's this button right here on the steering wheel. Bam. I can go right into drag, sport, normal, or track, or slippery, and I can switch my steering wheel right here. And then down here is my Magna Ride. I can swap that between track or sport. And when I go to normal mode, I can go ahead and switch between normal and sport. So 3 settings, but you only get 2 at a time there. And then, of course, the steering wheel can be set to sport, normal, or comfort. Wish there was an even stiffer setting for the steering wheel, but sport is pretty stiff. But the settings overall are all controlled here and here, you really don't have to leave the steering wheel to adjust anything. And to be honest, I like that a lot better. It is nice seeing a picture of your car over here on the SRTs. It really is a great thing, but it's more intuitive on the steering wheel. And even though this screen is a little bit smaller than the one on the Hellcats, it does the job, and it does it just as good, if not better, because it's not wasting as much space and it's easier to access. So all that matters is that it's functioning properly, and that's exactly what it's doing. So I can see everything on the screen, or I can go back and look at everything, you know, right there on the mini screen, like in digital, or I can go back to trip and fuel. So it's pretty much the same thing as, you know, any other car, especially like a Hellcat. The only difference is, instead of everything being way over here on the screen where you got to constantly look over and touch, which is cool, everything is on the steering wheel, and it's a lot more accessible than it is on the Hellcat. Plus, of course, I love the goodbye on the screen. It's really cool. I'm going to have to get ForeScan, which is a program for Windows, and you can get a Bluetooth OBD2 port connector, and I can actually switch that over to the GT350R, which brings us to the topic at hand. Got something I want to talk about with you guys here. So let's get to it. I've had a lot of questions about what the plan was for the GT350, and I think you guys are going to love it. So here is the plan that we're looking at for the GT350. I just finished speaking with a couple of different part sources, one of which is a Ford dealership. And then I also spoke with a couple other companies, and I do have some things coming, like weight reduction for one. I want to make the car lighter, okay? It's already really light, and it feels almost as quick as a stock Hellcat. Not quite, but it's almost there. If I could get 50 to 100 pounds out of the car and get some long tube headers going, which will make me about 30 more wheel, it's really there. It really is. And I know a lot of people think that it's phony or it's not true and it's not as fast. But anybody who's driven a Shelby GT350 or has even driven a Mustang GT knows these cars are so much lighter than a Hellcat. Like, I mean, so much drastic amount of weight that the slightest amount of horsepower increase makes them super fast, because they really are not heavy at all. I mean, they're really not ultra light. I would like to see this car at 3,200 pounds, but 3,700 and change is really light, considering a Scat Pack Challenger is almost 4,400 pounds, like 4,350. I mean, it's a car that has 40 less horsepower, 30 something less horsepower than this, and it weighs 800 pounds more. Like, the Mustang is just light, so it's easy to make speed with it because you're not carrying around all that weight. So basically what I'm looking to do here is, I've been sponsored by Anti-Gravity. If you guys don't know what Anti-Gravity is, they make racing batteries. Now, anybody who knows anything about racing batteries knows you can't daily drive them. You got to have a conditioner and a charger on these batteries or they will die. Well, Anti-Gravity sponsored me, and what they're going to do is send me out a battery. They've got a lithium battery that's 900 cold cranking amps, and it'll work with this car. And I'm going to use ForeScan and the Bluetooth connector on the OBD2 port to reset the charging system. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that when the video comes out. But the reason I'm doing this is because Braille make good batteries, but Braille batteries are pure race batteries. And as soon as you start driving on the street, they will eventually wear out within, 4 to 5 months, maybe even sooner, or you could possibly have a dead battery if you don't start your car for 3 or 4 days. The thing is, with the difference between AGM and which are glass matte batteries or lead acid batteries, is this is a lithium. So lithium, if you guys know Energizer batteries, the lithiums last 8 times longer. Lithium is stronger and it's better tech, but it's really expensive and really hard to manufacture. It's a really high-tech battery. Lithium is very advanced compared to lead acid and AGM batteries. That means that because it's lithium, it's going to give the same cold cranking amps as a stock battery, and you don't have to start your car every day. You can start it like a normal battery, and you only really have to condition it maybe once a month. In the wintertime, in the summer, you don't have to condition it at all. So if you're wondering, why would I buy this battery, or why would I get this battery, or who would buy it? Well, there's a major reason for it. Unlike Dodge, Ford put the battery in the engine bay, which is a no-no on a car this light. They should have put the battery in the trunk because that would have been more weight in the trunk, less weight in the nose, giving you a much better, weight distribution, which is the reason why if you look on the GT350s, the engine isn't here, it's all the way back here, and the nose extends, which helps put the center of gravity back to where the driver is. They did all these things to make the car balanced. The battery should have been in the trunk because that's dead weight in the engine bay, and we need to balance the weight even more because the trunk has no weight. So putting the battery in the trunk in a car this light would have made even more sense than it would in a Hellcat, because even the battery in the Hellcat only weighs about 75 pounds, and that battery in the engine bay would definitely make things worse, which is why it's in the trunk. But in a car this light, it makes even more sense because the car is lighter, and altering the weight by that amount is huge. So what I'll tell you guys, you may think, oh, 75 pounds is nothing in the engine bay. Well, it is, because when you put it in the trunk, you're adding 75 pounds to the trunk and you're taking 75 pounds out of the engine bay, which means overall in weight distribution, it's 150 pound change, which is a lot. That's why the Hellcats have the battery in the trunk. Now, if you're wondering, what does a stock battery weigh in a GT350? Well, the stock battery weighs 34 pounds. That's a lot. How much does anti-gravity's battery weigh? Well, that's the good news. The anti-gravity battery that I'm getting is only 4.9 pounds, which means I am going to be taking 30 pounds of dead weight off the front of the car. That is pretty huge if you think about it. It's just 30 pounds of just dead weight that's gone. And that's going to make a big difference. That is going to bring the car's total weight down to 3730 with a full interior. That's really good. And not only that, I've got a lightweight carbon fiber drive shaft coming, which is going to shed another 13 or 14 pounds. So I'm almost at 3,700 flat with a full interior. Now, I'm eventually going to do a carbon fiber trunk. The factory trunk weighs 21 pounds. Carbon fiber is 9. So there's another 11 pounds. So I'm going to have the car down to 37 flat with a full interior. Now, I have been sponsored. I've been fully sponsored by Project 6GR. Now, if you guys have heard of that, anybody who knows Mustangs knows that Project 6GR is big, and they make replica GT350 wheels. Now, these wheels that are on my car right now, they actually, believe it or not, are only a 19 and they weigh 33 pounds. Yet my 20-inch wheels on my Red Eye only weighed like 29 or 30 pounds. So these are 3 or 4 pounds heavier and they're an inch smaller. It doesn't make any sense. In any case, these wheels on the car actually weigh 33 pounds, okay? The wheels that I'm getting from Project 6G are only 24 pounds and 27 pounds. Now, the back wheel is heavier because it has, or it's lighter, excuse me, because it has less of an offset. Factory offset is 30 millimeter front, 62 in the rear, which means there's more aluminum on this wheel than there is on that wheel. There's more material, even though it's wider than the front because of the offset. So these are 19 by 10 and a half. Those are 19 by 11. I'm going with 19 by 11 and 19 by 11 and a half. I'm still going to use the same 295 and 305 tires because, you know, you don't want a stretch tire, but you're better to have a slightly stretched tire than a slightly bulged tire. Stretched tires like this are going to handle better. And since the 315s that they make in the rear from Michelin are in a 30 series tire, I'm going to stay with the 35 series because a 305 on an 11.5 is better than a 315 in 30 series for comfort, and it's going to handle just as good. I did think about going with a 345, but a 345 on an 11.5-inch wheel is too much bulge. This car is a handling car, so I'm really only adding half an inch, so the tires should be good. That's only 12 millimeters in width. It's not going to make much of a difference. The ideal size for an 11.5 wheel is a 315, so it's not much of a stretch to go from a 315 to a 305. It's just going to be a little bit more than it is now, but it'll be totally fine. So the back wheel is 33.5 pounds. The front wheel's 33. Project 6G, 24, 27. So I'm saving 4 pounds off the front and I'm saving 6 pounds off the rear. So that's 12 pounds between both sides. And then up front, we got ourselves another 8 pounds. So we're realistically looking at, actually, I made a mistake. We're at 9 pounds on the rear because the 24 on the aftermarket wheel, 33 on these. So we're actually saving 18 pounds on the rear and we're saving 12 on the front. There's 30 more pounds. So let's go ahead and add that up. 30 pounds on the wheels, 30 pounds on the battery. There's 60 pounds, 15 on the drive shaft. And then that's not including the trunk. So we're at 75 pounds. So the car is going to weigh 3,690 pounds with a full interior. We have not touched the interior at all, and we're under 3,700 pounds. Remember, the GT350R weighs 3,670, and it's light. This is only going to be 30 pounds heavier. The reason is because the GT350, the GT350R wheels, they weigh 21 pounds, I believe, or 20. I think they're 20 pounds. I could be off by a pound or two, but I was told they weighed 20 pounds, which means the wheels that I'm putting on are only 4 pounds heavier. Now, granted, that is 16 pounds different in rotational mass, so the carbon fiber wheels are better. They're also $24,000 from Ford, $15,000 used, whereas these wheels are going to cost me $1,600. So it's a really good compromise. Then I'm getting a rear seat delete from the GT350R. So once I do that, there's another, because all the hardware back there weighs like 38 pounds. So we're looking at another 38 pounds there. So when I'm said and done here, the car is going to weigh about 3,650, and that's full interior, just a rear seat delete. 3,650 is a good weight. At that amount of weight, once the car gets long tube headers, it's going to be making just at 600 or just over 600 crank, which means this car should be good for low 11s, high 10s in the quarter mile, which is not the purpose of this car. This car should be able to break 1.5 lateral Gs on a skid pad, 1.3, 1.2, depending on the turns, because I'm doing something else. It's not just all that weight difference. We're also putting on Ford Performance lowering springs, which are 3/4 of an inch. They're 0.78. Which, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be like 16 or 18 millimeter drop, something like that. So we're doing those, and they're going to be, it's really the spring rate that's important here. Keep in mind, the GT350R has a rear spring rate of 300. The spring rate on the front, I believe, on the GT350R is 240. Now, this isn't a regular GT350. This is a track pack, or not track pack, a handling pack GT350 for 2020, which means it has stiffer springs than the regular GT350. Now, I'm not exactly sure the exact specs of a GT350 spring rate. I'm pretty sure it's significantly less. Mine has a spring rate in the rear of 280, which means it's only 20 different than the GT350R. So the R is going to be a little bit stiffer in the back, but not much. The key is that the front spring rate is progressive on the GT350 and it's linear on the R. Ford Performance springs are linear in the front as well. I don't have time in this video to explain the difference between linear and progressive, but let's just say progressive springs are more comfortable, but linear are typically much more stable and suited for track use. And when I say track, I mean road course and handling and turns. But the spring rate in the front for an R is 240. On the track pack, it's 230. So it's a little bit of difference in the front and a little bit of difference in the rear. Now, the GT350R, like I said, is 240 front, 300 rear. The Ford Performance is 257, I think, or 260 in the front, and it's going to be 350 in the rear. So it's going to be a little bit stiffer and a little bit lower than a stock 350R, but very similar. It's basically a slight improvement over a GT350R. With that center of gravity and the way the car sits, with the weight reduction that I plan on doing and the long tube headers, this car is going to be straight filthy nasty. There's no chance for a Hellcat stock in a straight line. It's going to be very tough for a regular Charger or Challenger Hellcat. A manual won't have a chance because they run like low mid 11s. This car is going to be in the high 10s, and that's without boost. But on a road course, it's going to be no competition at all, none. This car is going to be straight nasty at 3,600 pounds, and with the Ford Performance lowering springs and the Maxim Motorsports top camber plates, this car is going to be just so sick in the turns and so fast. But that's not all. I have a lot more stuff to tell you guys, and I'm going to read comments in just a minute, but I really wanted to make this video, you know, fluid all the way through with all the specs and details. Then we'll get to the comments. So if you're thinking, okay, well, what's next? Well, we do have a couple more things coming, and I'll show you guys. I've got the GT350R red badge and deck lid coming for the back. I also ordered another trunk on eBay. So I have another trunk coming. I also have a carbon fiber Anderson Composites GT350R spoiler coming, and that's all going to get put on. I'm doing a video on it. We're going to install the GT350R spoiler and remove the GT spoiler, fill the holes, prep it for paint. Then we're going to drop the trunk off for paint. Then when it gets back, we're going to put the carbon fiber GT350R spoiler on it with the GT350R red badge deck lid, and then we're going to swap the trunk. So now we're going to have a full GT350R trunk. We're going to have GT350R suspension. And then we're going to move along to the front where I've already got this in the works. We're going to be replacing the GT350 badge and grille as an assembly with the GT350R. I also have the front splitter from the GT350R coming in. We're going to be doing that video this week as well. So this car in the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be fully converted to a GT350R. The only real difference is the wheels. But in about 2 or 3 months down the road, I'm going to be getting the replicas, which, by the way, are not cheap. A lot of guys say replicas suck, and they do. Replicas usually suck, although factory reproductions make the best Hellcat wheels. I was curious on who makes good Mustang wheels. Well, Project 6G, or 6GR, excuse me, not only makes the best wheels for Mustang, they're literally identical to the GT350R, and they're forged. They're not cheap Chinese knockoffs. These are made in America, and they're forged, and they're only $1,600. So those are coming, and once the wheels come, which is probably going to be July or August, the car is complete. I'm going to get the GT350R red Brembo calipers at some point, but to be honest, I don't think it's worth getting them because they're $1,000 for all four. Actually, I think they're $1,600 for all four. And there's no need for them because they're not any better than the ones that are on the GT350. The only difference between the 350 and the 350R is the paint. That's it. They are both 3-piston in the front. So it just doesn't make any sense to change them out. They're not, I've looked at them side by side, and they're literally the same part. One's red, one's steel. So I think I'm just going to coat these when I do the wheels, or maybe I'll do it when I do the springs. Not 100% sure, but either way, it's getting the full GT350R conversion. Now, I'm just not sure if I'm going to sell this trunk or keep it. I do like the gurney flap, and I do like the spoiler. Well, it's not a spoiler. This is more like a swing. So I'm going to explain to you guys, anytime air goes under or goes over, it's different. They're not the same. It is not the same at all. So what happens is anytime air goes under, then it's called a spoiler. Anytime, or a wing, excuse me. Anytime air goes over, it's called a wing. So a spoiler, or excuse me, a wing, I'm confusing myself. A wing is when air goes under, and a spoiler is when air goes over. So this is a swing. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. But the problem is this only produces 185 pounds of downforce. With the gurney flap, it produces 240. But the GT350R produces 300. So going with the GT350R spoiler, or excuse me, wing, is going to be the fact that I'm putting the front splitter on the car. I need it because what's going to happen is the GT350R splitter in the front is going to provide enough airflow and downforce that I'm going to need the extra downforce back here. Otherwise, I'll have slight amount of lift on the rear tires. It won't be much because of the fact I've got the gurney flap and this is a swing, not a spoiler. I probably will be okay, but 60 pounds of downforce is still enough to keep the tires planted in the turns. So I'm probably going to keep both trunks. But I'm doing the full conversion. It's got to get expel in the front still and ceramic coated and tint as well. But I'm not exactly sure on which direction I'm going. Once all that is done this summer, I'm going to be getting twin turbo setup or supercharger, either getting closer to Christmas or maybe sooner, depending on how the channel goes. So basically, I just want to give you guys that update. It was a 25-minute update here. All the details of everything I'm doing. They're the same horsepower. The difference is that before 2019 came out, the GT350R had different oil sprockets, different crank sprocket. It had a different gear. It had a different timing chain guides. It had a bunch of different stuff. It had different valves. There was a few little things that made the R a little bit better. In the 2019 and in 2020, there's no differences, none. This engine is everything that was in the R, but not only that, it has the GT500 block. It also has forged H-beam rods, which are a lot stronger, probably twice as strong as the previous models at GT350. The Generation 2 Voodoo, or Voodoo 2, is a lot stronger. Everything in the bottom end is forged. There's now sleeves in the cylinder walls, or not really sleeves, but liners. They're a lot stronger. You have the pathways, or the water jackets for the coolant, have more insulation and more material, meaning that they're not as thin and flimsy. They've also upgraded the valve train and a lot of other things on the car to make it a lot stronger. It can now handle 12 pounds of boost reliably, and that's what Ford stated in their press release. Now, there was a lot of engines that blew, not really a lot, but there was probably 15 or 20 that were very notorious on the internet that blew, that were 16, 17, 18 cars. And most of them were spun bearings, oil consumption, and rod through the block. You don't see rods through the block and oil consumption and spun bearings on the 2019 and 20. We right now have 5 blown engines between 19 and 20. All of them have dropped valves inside of the cylinder. And Ford has really researched this, and it's now pretty much out and online and sporadic information, if you go digging for it, that there was a batch of valves, the valve and the valve retainers. At the very top of a valve, you have a little pin that holds the valve in place. And I don't want to get too technical with all this stuff, but what happens is, one of those pins, I guess, were not strong enough, or the valve wasn't strong enough, and they gave out and the valve dropped. We have not seen a 2019 or a 2020 with a rod through the block, because the block is the GT500 block and it's a lot stronger. So they had a bad batch of valves, and it seems to be affecting the 19s. There's only one 2020 that had the issue, and it was a GT350R, and it was in Grabber Lime out in Arizona or New Mexico. A couple of weeks ago. He got his car the same time as me. Now, who's to say that he broke it in properly? He could say that he did. He really could, but that doesn't mean he did. And if you don't break this car in properly for the first 100 to 200 miles, you could throw a rod through the block or drop a valve easily. You also have to make sure the cylinder head temperature is 200 degrees Fahrenheit before you really beat on it, and you want your engine oil to be 170 minimum. So these, if anybody thinks these are weak, these engines are not weak. The Voodoo version 2 is a lot stouter of an engine. And I would say, since they've built like over 1,200 of them, having 4 of them with problems really is not a high number at all. Yeah, low end power is okay, but it only helps you out in 0 to 60 a little bit, which we've seen, because the Red Eye 0 to 60 is not much better than the Hellcat, because you can't put the power to the ground. You need to have boost by gear in the Hellcats. They're really not good at launching unless you have drag radials on a hot summer day. So all that low-end torque is going to waste unless you can hook the power. As long as you can hook it, you're good. It's great to have low-end torque, but sometimes it can be like a double-edged sword. With the Mustang, it's got just the right amount of torque to get you out of the hole in first gear. And then when you start rowing through first and second gear, it starts to fly. So it's like the perfect balance. But you know, this video is more about the mods and not comparing the two of them. I'll try to keep that for another video. But now I'm going to look at questions. I'm going to go ahead and start looking at questions. So yeah, guys, a lot of plans coming. So stay tuned for the videos. Check that bell notification and whatnot. So I'm going to check comments and stuff like that. Also, I want to let you guys know right now that I'm going to be on a one only for right now. It's a one only live stream, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, Warzone, and I'm not streaming on Circle, Triangle, Square. I'm going to be streaming the game on Driveway Demons tonight. It's kind of like a one-time only for Easter right now. So if you guys want to catch me in a couple hours on Call of Duty, I'm going to be right here. We're going to have some good fun and some good ideas, and I'm even going to be doing some crazy shit where if someone wants to super chat me to kill my team, I'll go into team mode and I'll just kill my whole team and screw them over, stuff like that. I did that the other day on my game channel. We're going to have some fun tonight, but let me take these comments and let's start talking about anything I missed. I'm sorry I didn't call any of your guys' names out. I just really wanted to touch base. So anybody who's not watching this live, I'm just going to say goodbye now. I'm going to stay on here and answer questions for you guys. We'll hang out for a bit. But for anybody who's not here watching this live and you're watching at a later date, thanks so much for stopping in. I appreciate it, guys. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see you on the next video. Now, if you guys are new to the channel and you're wondering why I did that, YouTube lets me delete all this. So I can delete all this video once we're done hanging out. And this way, anybody who watches it later doesn't have to go through all of this stuff. So now I'm going to take comments. You want Scat Pack action. I would like to have some fun, Mike. If you want to run the cars this week and we'll go to Mexico, that sounds fine to me. The basket's done. What is that? I don't get what that means. Oh, you mean the Easter egg baskets? That just kind of went over my head. Yes, we did Easter today with my kids. We did it a day early. What's up, Michael? Jesus loves all you guys too. I'm going to probably just let the shop decide on the ceramic coating, Chris. My 11 GT500, it only makes 550 wheel horsepower. I bought my dad a GT350 and want to race a bolt-on 350. So, Uriel, who won between you and the GT500 when you guys, or the GT350 when you guys raced? Also, on a side note, Uriel, I don't know if you know this, but your name is very biblical on Easter. Let's see who's smart in the chat right now on knowledge based on the Bible. There's a guy in here, his name is Uriel. I don't know if it's spelt the same. I'd have to double check, but there's a very, very important and significant celestial being in the Bible, and nobody really not too many people know this, because he doesn't go by the name Uriel, but there is someone in the Bible whose name is Uriel, but we call him something else. And that was really cool. I just realized that by seeing your name. So let's see who's in the chat right now who knows which celestial being in the Bible dealing with God and Catholic religion whose real name is Uriel, but almost nobody ever uses it and very few people know it. Let's see who knows that. Joven said, hey, Corey, love what you're doing, bro. Thanks so much, buddy. Machiavelli, I didn't get your question. Jeremy, what's up, buddy? What's up, Doom? What's up, Jose? What's up, Hamza? Destroyer Scatback, what's up, buddy? I don't care anything about Ron. Good luck to Ron and Motor Boobs. Yeah, linear is much better, Reeve. That's why I'm going with Ford Performance. Fox Body Swap it. Alan pinching weight makes a big deal in a race. What's up, Andrew Black? What's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Albert Neves, I love the car. That's why it's the best car I've ever driven. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. It's the truth. Let's see. Motor Poop just uploaded a video where he found some idiots from Chicago to the sponsors, right? Oh, God. Good luck with him. Hellcats are too heavy. I agree, Travis. They are very heavy. The Mustang is a better driver's car for sure. Carbon fiber drive shaft is a much. Yep, 22 pounds, Reeve, right there for sure. Now I'm checking out comments again because I'm missing. My dad doesn't race, and yes, I know about my name. The R is a little quicker just because of the weight. Thanks, Frost. I appreciate it, bro. Tonight, GSP can't do it, Mike. Can't do it tonight. Have to do it tomorrow, and I prefer to do it during the day so I can see there's no cops out in Mexico. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it, buddy. Flat plane cranks. I'm not sure. I wish they had done it in GT500 as well, but you can name your car the Grinch, exact same color. That's a pretty good name, though. It's a driver's car for sure. The GT350, I'm going to tell you guys right now, and it's not a lie. It's 100% truth from my heart. I have more fun driving this car than any car I've ever driven. And people ask me, like, what is so good about this car? Like, what is it that's good? Well, I'm going to tell you guys right now what's good. I'll make it really easy. If you ever get a chance to step into a Honda, a Type R, and I'm not talking about that new Civic that came out with a turbo. I'm talking if you ever get the chance to step in a Civic Si, naturally aspirated with cams, like Skunk 2 cams and a tune, or you step into an Integra Type R like I had, it doesn't have to be right-hand drive. It could just be an RSX with Type R cams or a Type R engine swap, anything like that. You get a sense of thrill because the car handles good, it's balanced, the quality is good, and it's high revving, naturally aspirated. It makes all its power in the high revs. So that's a really fun car to drive, but the problem is Hondas don't make a lot of power. Now, granted, the Integra and the Civics only weigh 2,500 pounds, so it's 1,200 pounds lighter than I am, so 200 horsepower is actually not too shabby at all. But the reason why the GT350 is so much fun to drive is it handles as good or better than a Type R, which is saying a lot. If you're not really into Type Rs or understand, they handle better than a Hellcat. Like if you take an Integra Type R and do full bolt-ons and a full tune and race gas and make like 250 wheel horsepower, and you gut it out with just the driver's seat, which they pretty much come gutted anyway from the factory. I mean, their seats are somewhat light anyway. It would catch the Hellcat in the turns. If I'm not mistaken, the Civic Type R had a better track time than the Hellcat did. So if you're, or the Red Eye, I mean, and the Red Eye is pretty good on a road course, but you guys just have to understand how good Honda is at handling. Well, the GT350 handles better than my Hondas ever did, and I would know because I owned an actual Type R from Japan, which is the best car Honda ever built for a road course. And I owned that car. And the GT350 handles better than the Type R did. It revs just as high, just about as high, sounds better, and has way more power to weight ratio, and it's a lot faster. So you could say that the Mustang GT350 or Shelby GT350 is essentially a Type R Integra on steroids. Like, it's the car I've always wanted. I told myself, I gotta have an Integra Type R and a Hellcat, because I want the power, but I also want the speed in the corners. I always have wanted that. That's why I've had 4 or 5 Hondas. It's actually 6 if you include my hatchback. So I've always wanted straight line, and I've always wanted road course in the corners type speed. Well, the GT350 is like the dream car. Like I said, it drives and handles as good or better than a Honda, and it's high revving as well and makes almost the same power as a Hellcat. My car's making 580, 590 crank. Like you start getting to 600 crank, and as light as this is, it's as fast as a stock Hellcat. So it's the best of both worlds. So this is literally my dream car based on performance. I personally don't care what they call it. They could call it the green blob for all I care, and Ford could take the Mustang badge off. I don't care. All I know is this car handles as good as a Honda Integra does, and it drives faster. So it's, like I said, the dream car. I can turn the corners. I can go around these bends in the road doing 70, 80 miles an hour, and the car doesn't lean at all. It's only going to get better with the better wheels and the better suspension. So it's a hoot to drive. It really is. I haven't been able to drive any car in my entire life that drives this good, except the NSX and the S2000 I drove. I did drive a Mugen S2000, and I owned an S2000, which were pretty good. And I also had a buddy of mine that owned an NSX Type R, and I drove that. And they were very good engines, but the GT350 is still faster than both of them. So definitely a great car nonetheless. And, you know, I didn't like this car because I bought it or fall in love with it because I bought it. I bought it because I liked it. I liked the car and loved the car 3 years ago, even when I owned a Hellcat. If you guys dig through all my videos last year and the year before, you'll probably see in quite a few videos I mentioned the GT350 and that I eventually was going to get one. And so this was just a long time coming. I've been in love with this car since they announced it in 2015. Like I said, it's just been a long time coming. It really has. And it's just a beautiful machine, and it handles very well. And I can't say enough good things about the car. I really can't. Like, I don't think there's anything about this car that I don't like. I just can't say anything negative about it. I really can't.